All right, so we just talked about the explicit formula and what that looks like and how we use that with arithmetic sequences. So remember, arithmetic means addition or subtraction. So there's two types of formulas. There's this explicit formula, and then we have this recursive formula. So we're going to go through that one right now. Notice there's a tiny bit of difference between the explicit formula and the recursive formula. And what happens here is now we have a sub n minus 1, so the term before it, and then we're going to add d to it. So the thing that changed from our recursive to our explicit is I took out my b. So on these, we're not quite sure that we're starting with our first term. So we're just trying to use what we have and then figure out what our first term would be. Okay, so a sub n is the term's name. And this is very similar to the explicit. We also call this the term number. My example for this is if you had like a sub, I don't know, 18, then this would be the 18th term. Okay, so a sub n minus 1 is the previous term. Not necessarily the first term or the 0 term, which we needed in the explicit. And then d is the common difference, just like the explicit. And then we can also say that this is also what you're adding or subtracting by. Each time. Okay, so a lot of similarities between the recursive and the explicit. All right, so now we're going to use what we have. Again, we're not quite sure which one is the a sub 0 or the a sub 1, but we're trying to figure out what it is. So we have to start with our common difference. So how do I go from 35 to 32? Well, it's decreasing, and I'm decreasing by 3. And that happens each time, 32 to 29, 29 to 26. So it is arithmetic because it's happening by the same amount every time, and it's decreasing by 3. So my d equals negative 3. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to write our formula. So our formula is a sub n equals a sub n minus 1. And these guys have to be little. They can't be right next to your a or else it's going to be wrong. So make sure that your a sub n and a sub n minus 1 are little. And then we're going to subtract 3 because that's our common difference. So this is our formula. Now, let's say that I wanted to figure out a little bit more information. Oh, right. I'm sorry. My apologies. You also have to say what your first term is. I forgot about this part. Okay, so this is part of one answer, and then we have to say a sub 1 is equal to 35. So this is our first term of our sequence, but we're not quite sure exactly where that is. Okay, so a sub 1 is 35. And then let's say I wanted the fifth term. So a sub 5. So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to go to our fifth term. What? Oh, our fourth term. That's right. So it's, okay. I'm sorry. Let me write this out. A sub 5 minus 1 minus 3. Okay, so 5 minus 1 is 4. So really, this says a sub 5, so the fifth term is going to be the fourth term minus 3. Okay, so I plugged my 5 in where my n was, and I subtracted, and I got 4. So now I look back to my sequence. So this is my first, second, third, fourth, so that's 26. So 26 and a sub 4 are the same thing because this is the fourth term of my sequence, so I'm going to plug these guys in. I'm going to substitute 26 into a sub 4. So a sub 5 equals 26 minus 3, which is the same thing as 23. So the fifth term of this sequence, if 35 was our first term, then we would get 23. Okay, so let's try another one. Sorry, that's kind of tricky. I like 1 to 6 better than trying to figure out negative 4 to 1, so I'm going to look at that. So to go from 1 to 6, I'm going to add 5, And then, what do you know? From 6 to 11, I also add 5, and from negative 4 to 1, I add 5 as well. So that's my D. My D is 5. Okay, so let's write our formula because that's all the information we need. A sub n equals a sub n minus 1 minus 3. And then also, let's write a semicolon instead of 2 boxes. We need a sub 1, and a sub 1 is the very first term of this sequence. So that would be negative 4. Okay, so here is my formula for the recursive arithmetic for this sequence. Okay, now what I need to do is I'm going to figure out the 5th term. So we're going to do this exact same thing, but for this problem. So we're going to do a sub 5 equals a sub 5 minus 1, because that's what my formula says, n minus 1, minus, oh, JK, sorry, plus 5. Oh, man, plus 5. I was looking at the other D instead. Okay, so 5 minus 1 is 4, so this is really a sub 4. So if I count, this is my first term, second term, third term, fourth term. So a sub 4 and 11 are the same exact things. So I really have a sub 5 equals 11 plus 5. And 11 plus 5 will give me 16. Okay, so that is how you do the recursive formula for the arithmetic.